I enjoy finding obscure or lesser known games. With the power of Steam, I have been able to find games that I've never seen at a local game store. There are countless good games that not a lot of people seem to talk about. YouTube is filled with tons of tier lists of games that everyone knows already. So instead of doing an opinionized top 5 list, I decided to do 5 lesser known 2D platformers that you should be aware of. Not all games on this list are exclusively on Steam. At the end of each game section, I'll show what platforms the game is available on. I also want to say that there isn't any particular order to this list, so number 5 is not worse than number 1. There's no meaning behind the numbers, it's just there. With that being said, on with the video. At number 5 we have The Messenger. What a treat it was to discover this game. I mean, just an absolute beautiful game all around. As you can tell by the gameplay shown right now, it's a retro throwback in terms of graphics. The Messenger takes heavy inspiration from Tecmo's Ninja Gaiden for the NES. Not only is it similar graphically, but it also carries that challenging DNA that Ninja Gaiden gave to players in the 80s. It's not rage-inducing like its older counterpart, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't pretty hard. That's about where the similarities end, as this game comes into its own and creates a completely new experience. In The Messenger, you play as an unnamed ninja on an isolated island. His ninja clan trains for a large war which happens every few hundred years. The enemy being the Demon King and his dreadful army. Their sole purpose is to wipe out most of humanity, with the remaining humans to rebuild what is left just for the Demon King to rise again and rinse and repeat. With a pretty simple story, it's easy to understand what's going on. Not long into the game, you are introduced to time travel. The way it is used is very interesting, as some things will happen with no explanation, just for you to understand why a little later. When you time travel, the entire game switches from an NES game to a Sega Genesis game. Not only do the graphics change, but so does the music. I found myself switching between eras just to hear the different renditions of each stage. The gameplay is the most addicting I've played. The platforming is satisfying as you flip, glide, grapple, and wall crawl your way throughout the levels. 2D Spider-Man, anyone?
Pizza time.
You can gain an extra jump when you attack an enemy while airborne. This ability is known as the Cloud Step. Step aside, Skywalkers, the Cloud Stepper's coming through. Enemy projectiles are no match for your ninja sword, as they can be put out by a single slice. Oh wait, that's actually an upgrade. This game has its own skill tree that allows the player to upgrade things like buffs to your HP to being able to throw ninja stars. You get the most enjoyment if you try to max out your skills early on. So do yourself a favor and upgrade it as soon as possible. There is never a dull moment with this game, as it is heavily based around momentum. While you aren't on a timer, some areas require you to move swiftly, or else you will have to start over from the last checkpoint. This creates a zen-like experience once you've mastered the mechanics. The game has really good writing for its characters, with the shopkeeper being my favorite character to interact with. It might be a stretch, but if you like Undertale's characters, then you'll enjoy this game's similar interactions. The game is $20 off rip and can go low as 4 to 5 on sale for Steam, which is honestly a steal. I highly recommend everyone to play this game. Even if you wait for it to go on sale, I promise you won't regret it. While I haven't talked about everything this game has to offer, I want to save the rest of the experience to you, the viewer. The whole point is to put these games on your radar. This also goes for the rest of the games on this list. Speaking of...
Sonic's the name, speed's my game.
It's no secret that Sonic has been Mario's rival since his debut. However, looks alone didn't give him that title. Not very many games at the time could go as fast as the Blue Rat, but when you start to fumble the bag one too many times, you allow the young blood to catch up. I've played games like Star Planet that try to mimic 2D Sonic, but they never really hit that spot for me personally. So when I bought Spark the Electric Jester, I thought it would be more of the same, but man was I wrong, and I'm glad I was. In this fast-paced action game, you assume the role of Spark. He studied electrical engineering and in his spare time crafted a hat that could help him manipulate electricity through his fingers. He got picked up by a circus that later replaced him with the robot replica before he could even get his first paycheck. While pondering about his next income, he sees that the robots that once were taking jobs are now doing physical harm to the townspeople. With no job, he takes the role as a hero to give those job stealers a piece of his mind. This is one of those indie games that is really nice to look at. Some parts can look a little jank, but not every game can be perfect. While the character himself is simple and a little on the nose in terms of his hair thingies, it's honestly not bad at all. I enjoy his simplicity to a degree. When you start off in the first level, you automatically hear that Mega Drive inspiration, and it is glorious. I mean, just take a listen for yourself. The music for this game is just awesome. I can hear a little Sonic inspiration, but mostly it sounds like its own thing. Alright, let's get one thing straight. Yes, this game is heavily inspired by the Sonic series, but it is not a copy and paste. Gameplay wise, Spark plays just like Kirby, with various hats giving him different abilities. Just like the Kirby games, you can throw the hat away, or you could just keep it and swap it out with another ability you might find later on. If you have more than one ability that you like, you may keep two you enjoy. Spark has his own attacks like kicks and punches in his base form. He even has a Mega Man like charge shot for his super. This also goes for other hats. Each hat has their own unique super ability. My two favorite hats are the fire and the mage hats. The mage allows you to perform a huge Ryu Hadouken beam if charged up. This can also kill bosses faster if you save up some energy. Now this game isn't too difficult, but it is very challenging. Most of the times I died was from either getting squished or just going guns ho with one of my abilities on a boss. Speaking of the bosses, they are the most fun personally. You get to use all of Spark's abilities during these boss fights, and I love it. The one thing Sonic games usually lack are creative bosses. Sometimes it doesn't need to have a weak point. Sometimes I just want to use everything I have and blast the thing into pieces. Bosses in this game are the pinnacle of it all, but the fast-paced aesthetics do give it that Sonic charm too. Story-wise, I really enjoyed the characters' interactions. Spark has some funny faces, and the writing is pretty witty with its modern humor. The game shows its true colors an hour or less in. Other than my nitpicks, I really enjoyed the ending and it was super memorable. There is also a playable character after you beat the game, so there's more content there for you once you beat it. This game is very gracious with its pricing starting at $8 USD. It has gone on sale for $3 on Steam for those that wanted that info. By the way, I checked the sales history using SteamDB. That website has helped me a lot when figuring out if I should buy things or not. This game is only on Steam, but hopefully a port for it on Switch can happen. Would be cool to play it on the go. If I had anywhere to go, that is. Thankfully, this isn't the only title in the Spark series. There were two other games as well. I actually skipped 2 and bought 3, but after replaying 1 for this video, I want to go back and get 2 as well. This was a really fun experience, and if anything, listen to the music. It is one of the best parts of this game. So for Spark the Electric Jester, I tip my hat to you. Mega Man X has always been a fun franchise to come back to, but when the well dries up at Capcom, you gotta find your Mega Man fix elsewhere. I found several good games that play like X, but this next entry is by far the most bizarre I've played. 20XX was not what I expected. I bought it around the summer sale for the fact it's literally just another Mega Man clone. Months later, when I finally booted it up, I went in thinking it would play like a traditional Mega Man game. To my surprise, it's a roguelike take on Capcom's Blue Bomber. Like I said before, I forgot what this game was about. In 20XX, you start off as Nina. That's all I can really say about the story since this game doesn't have much of one. More on that later. Nina plays just like X, fully equipped with the dash and the charge shot as her default. You also get to play as Ace, this game's Zero. I fully recommend playing Nina for beginners as she's the most friendly to handle. You can upgrade Nina with different stat boosts and even the staple armor upgrades. This isn't your typical Mega Man game, so not all upgrades are permanent. As mentioned earlier, this is a roguelike. You're not meant to beat the game in one life. In fact, that's all you have. Once your health hits 0, you come right back to the hub to buy more upgrades and even select permanent upgrades for your next run. The upgrades themselves vary from more damage, a health or energy increase, run speed,
and so on and so forth.
The game has procedurally generated levels that makes every run different from the last. This can be a good thing, but sometimes it can screw you over if you get a bad seed. While some players may hate it, Mega Man vets may enjoy the challenge of not knowing the level's map. The main highlight of this game is its bosses. These are also random and can appear in different stages. Once a boss is defeated, you may choose to take their ability or the other 3 items behind it. In my opinion, not every boss ability is worth grabbing unless you really want to have another boss's weakness. My go-to every time is the Vera.
Say hello to my little friend!
Real quick, is it just me or does the boss health bar sound like Mario? There isn't much of a story here, and honestly it doesn't need one. What they did was perfectly fine with this type of game. You don't normally play run and guns for their story, so it's not a big deal. It does have some story, but they come in the form of these image fade-ins. The game does look a little rough from its character design to its cutscenes. Now from what I've heard, it was in early access on Steam back in 2014, but didn't get a full release until 2017. So what I'm thinking is that most of the art direction was already locked in by 2014 and they couldn't change it. It is an older indie game, so I'm not gonna let the graphics pull this game down. I had way too much fun for me to start bashing the game for its art direction. With that being said, I highly recommend getting this game, especially on sale. 20XX goes for $15 USD, and on sale it can go as little as $4 to $3. Again, I cannot stress enough how fun this game is. If you're a Mega Man fan, please do yourself a favor and add this to your library as soon as possible. A quick note before we go to the next game, 20XX does have a sequel called 30XX, and it looks amazing. Can't wait to play it and drag my friend with me. Also, it looks so much cooler design wise. The Angry Video Game Nerd is an icon here on YouTube. For those that may not know, he's a video game reviewer of the classics. But not just any old game, no. He plays the bad ones.
Number 2, Star Evil. Who's gonna dodge that? Nobody! Not the first time. You'd have to know, oh, this is gonna be a vertical 2D shooter, and there's gonna be an obstacle immediately at the start of the game.
But what happens when the nerd gets his own game? Since the first game is relatively short, I'll be bundling both games as one. In both Angry Video Game Nerd games, you play as the nerd. Both games start off with the nerd getting sucked into a bad 8-bit video game. The story of the two plays like a regular AVGN episode. These games have the Mega Man run and gun playstyle that was most common in the 80s. There are plenty of references to both the era of games, as well as the nerd's own videos. While the humor is fairly easy to understand, some players may be thrown off by the references. Fans of the nerd will likely appreciate the more hidden jokes throughout the level design. As mentioned earlier, the nerd plays like Mega Man with his zapper being his main weapon. Sub-weapons can be found in the stages themselves but will disappear quickly if you die. Even more unfortunate, the super scope upgrade will vanish if you're hit just once. It doesn't help that the level is trying to kill you every 5 seconds with its unfair one-shot death blocks. I understand the point of this game is to imitate a crappy game, but it in turn makes the player have to play against intentional bad game design. While I still recommend this game, it's not for everyone. This truly is a test your might kind of game. In the first AVGN game, there are 8 side-scroller levels to beat with a difficult final level after that. The second game increased its playtime with about 20 levels split against 5 world themes. There are hidden playable characters in the first game, while the second has collectible hidden upgrades with the additional wall slide and wall jump taken from the X series. Both these games were very neat experiences and should be treated as such. What I mean is that they aren't particularly fair games. While the remastered collection is a little easier than the original, it's not a walk in the park. They do have intentional bad game design, so these games are more for those that want a challenge. With the price starting at $10 USD, it's hard to pass it up. Even when its lowest price, as of this video, is $7, it's not a bad grab. If you wanted to, you could get just one of them for $5 a piece. I still recommend getting the deluxe bundle since it is a bit updated and even has extra things in it. If you want to go a step further, the physical release is $40 USD with a really cool box art and reverse cover of the nerd himself.
The Angry Video Game Nerd.
Bring it on.
Last but not least, we have Blade Kitten. While technically it is 2.5D, it's still a side-scroller. The way this game looks, I mistook it for a PS2 game. Now there's nothing wrong with the PS2 era by any means. Most of my summer days were poured into my beloved PlayStation, so I have deep nostalgia for that era. Inevitably, when I saw this on Steam, I immediately threw my money at it with no hesitation. This is the most interesting game on this list. This game takes place 3 years before the comic book it originated from. Yes, there is a comic book for this game, but we'll get back to that later. In this action platformer, you'll take control of Kit Ballard, a bounty hunter. The game starts off with her main mission to assassinate the evil Tara Lee. Throughout her journey, she encounters multiple roadblocks, with the first one being another bounty hunter. The story is quite simple with different turns, as all good stories have. Every video game has their gimmick. Kit is no different, as hers is the ability to climb or hang onto multitudes of surfaces. This is the main platforming you'll be doing, and I wish more games did this. All of her platforming abilities make for an addicting playstyle, as you do acrobatics all throughout each levels, collecting credits. These credits can be used to upgrade Kit. Upgrades vary from a stamina increase to a whole new sword with different attributes. You can also style out Kit to your liking with various outfits in the shop. These outfits do show up in cutscenes for those who are wondering.
Hey there, little Miss H2O2. Bleached much?
The combat in this game is pretty standard and at times very button mashing. Even so, it never gets old seeing a floating sword attack far ranged opponents. But that's not all the sword can do. It is also used for light puzzles. Now these puzzles are not very puzzly, but they're something. When it comes to gameplay, this game doesn't try to reinvent the wheel. The playstyle isn't the craziest in terms of innovation. Still, I found myself enjoying the gameplay loop. Overall, this game is pretty neat. There's not much else I can say without saying too much. It's a simple platformer with an interesting cast of characters. With episode 1 being $3 USD, there's no harm in trying it out yourself. You could certainly go the extra mile and buy the Hollow Wish bundle. The bundle includes both episode 1 and 2, plus 164 pages of the comic book. So not only are you getting the prequel via the games, but you're also getting the story that takes place after them. From what I gathered about this game, the creator was part of Ty the Tasmanian Tiger and Star Wars The Force Unleashed, as well as many other things. Take that info with what you will. In fact, I encourage you to check out their website for Blade Kitten for more info. You can even buy a physical copy of the comic book on the website. I'll leave the link to it in the description. I'm not sponsored, I just love supporting indie projects and I really like this one. If you made it this far, thank you for sticking around. I plan on doing more obscure games in other genres, so I hope you are looking forward to those. I'd love to know your favorite indie 2D platformers down in the comments. Discovering new indie games is always exciting. With that being said, have a good one and take care.
Alright, baby.